dear friends, here we are, live or on demand. I'm here with you from the Spirit Society of Richmond in Richmond, Virginia, with another study from the book Green Light by the Spirit under Luiz through the mediumship of Francisco Cândido Xavier. What a blessing to be with you. Happy New Year. Happy today if you're watching this later in a different year, in a different time. This is our first chapter of the year, chapter 47. And we have a few more to go. I did not do them in there's 1, 2, 3 more chapters before we are done with this study. The playlist is linked below, so you can always have it the playlist to the YouTube channel because it's the easiest one to use for you to listen to it for the different chapters over time that we've done. And today we're going to be talking about visits to those who are ill or who are sick. Let's say at some point in our lives, we will become ill. We'll become ill to the point that we are able to care for ourselves in our homes or care for our loved ones in our homes. Perhaps we'll be ill that we have to go to a facility, to a hospital, somewhere that a higher level of care is needed. So how do we behave in those situations? The beauty of this book, Green Light, is that André Luiz give us tips, tricks, very practical advice on how to be, because we are lacking that today. You were brought here to listen to those who are sick. As we are in the phase tail end, hopefully, of this pandemic, based on the numbers, we'll never know. But we've passed 3 years, we lived through a situation where we have the possibility of being ill. COVID still out there, so is the flu, so is RSV, so are other diseases that are not necessarily contagious in that manner, but cancers, different surgeries that are needed, all manners of issues with our physical body. You and I are spirits living on the earth, incarnated, linked per spiritual molecule to per spiritual molecule to our physical bodies. At some point, we may experience the need of visiting someone who is ill or will be ill ourselves. So hopefully they will give us an idea of how to be when we're ill, or what can we do to help others help us when we're ill. Then we can also, when we are the guests, when we're visiting, we can be of service, because it's all about helping one another to be better. So he says, visiting a sick person demands tact and comprehension. So visiting someone's an act of service. We are going there. We have our spiritual companions with us. We need to understand this process of disease and illness. Why do we want to be there? Why are we visiting? Is out of convention, out of curiosity, out of care and concern? And how can we serve once we are there? So we have to understand that even pain, as André Luiz brings to us in a separate book, pain can be a vehicle. Pain is a vehicle for you and I to learn, to evolve, to grow, to atone. So there are reasons why we go through certain things that we don't understand necessarily, because it's all about looking at our lives throughout time in our reincarnatory plans. So how do we go about it? Why do I want to visit? So do I understand what's going on? It says, don't shake hands with the person unless he or she wants to do so or take the initiative to do so. Unquote. That's an interesting part, because now we are more aware with COVID that in proximity to one another, even though we need that, we understand the importance of our relationships and our connections when we're staying apart in order to help one another not become sick. We understand that diseases can be transmitted, and that's why it's important to have hygiene, to wash our hands before eating, before after going to the bathroom, after touching surfaces. It's very important to have good care because hands can be carriers of diseases. But if the person wants to, we can shake hands with them. And there's also a different concept that as I was preparing this for us, came to mind of personal space. Respecting that if someone is ill, she or he may not be wanting to touch your hands or get a hug or be taken. Sometimes the body needs that rest, and we need to respect people's personal space and consent to that kind of interaction. It's a very important concept for us to think of. So she said, let's say you're going to someone's house, the sick person. This is I'm playing. I'm putting a picture in your mind. You go to someone's home. They're sequestered in their room, resting, and you come to visit their homes. And under Luiz will say this phrase, quote, if you're not spontaneously called to see the sick person, to visit with them, do not insist on it and accept the reason that is unspoken that prevent your contact with them, unquote. Again, not imposing ourselves. Maybe they didn't have a good night or a good day. Maybe that's a time where they're having some physical manifestations of the disease that are unpleasant. So when we go to someone's home and then they're ill, we don't force our presence in them. We go and visit, we show that we care, we talk to the caregivers, and if the person doesn't want to see you or us, then we accept it. He's saying, because there are reasons why. And again, when we are reading this, I'm always inspired by the spirits to tell you and myself, if I were ill, would I feel like hugging, touching, moving, or would I want to rest? So if I were ill, perhaps at that time I wanted to rest. Therefore, if I'm visiting someone who is ill, they also have the right to decline. And that doesn't mean they don't love us, it doesn't mean they don't care, doesn't mean they don't want to be around. It just means that's not the right time. That goes for all factions of life. So says any kind of chat or conversation in the presence of a sick person must be carried out with control and discernment. Avoid talking about illnesses, symptoms, other people's sufferings, and upsetting issues, unquote. Two phrases in one comment. Sometimes we go and we're not aware that we are saying things that are inappropriate. A lot of people are saying things through, the spirits are saying things through them and they don't realize. How do I know that? From the book Verde. I came back from Brother Jacob. In his own funeral, he's there. He had merit. He was watching the funeral. And a lot of people are commenting about his things, how he was, how he wasn't in the funeral. And we do that when we visit people in their homes, in their hospitals. Hopefully, if we are ill, we're not going to people's homes and we're not bringing ill people into our homes unless we're their caregivers and we can do something good, right? We don't spread disease. We want to be helpful. So he says, don't talk about symptoms, diseases, other people suffering. When the person is suffering, how would you feel if you were suffering and then people start talking? Well, you think you have it? We do that. We're trying to one up, right? Oh, do you think your suffering is hard? And when I was sick in 19 whatever, this happened to me. That's not helpful. And that's why he starts by saying conversations need to be controlled and discerning. Is it the right thing to say? Is it true? Is it helpful? Or instead of, what we could do is we can pray with the person. We can see if there's anything the family needs or that person needs. It's a lot of us who need a lot of different things, even in materially speaking. There's a lot of people living in poverty. They could use our help. A lot of people who don't have material poverty but have spiritual poverty. So what about we take a book like this, Living Spring, the Gospel, and we read with them, we pray with them, and we wish that God's will be done. Right? Now he's saying, let's for illnesses that take a long time. He says, in case of prolonged treatments, a fraternal card of flowers can sometimes substitute for the impossibility of being present constantly with the sick one. It constitutes a great spring of positive vibrations, something that goes overlooked by us. Sometimes someone is under a long course of treatment, let's say a stroke, cancer, an accident, a chronic illness that debilitates them in some way. Then, instead of just visiting, perhaps instead of visiting them repeatedly, which we can try to do if we can be helpful, we can send them flowers, we can send them cards. It says it can be springs of constructive vibrations, positive vibrations. Something that is overlooked by us in general is that when we write, when we think, when we're creating a card, building something, cooking something, we can infuse with positive vibrations that item. And the item now is getting to the other person. The same way when they make something, the item come to us. That emotional fluidic influence can be coming to us. So it can still be helpful in that manner. He says, while prayer is always a providential blessing in all occasions, medical assistance in favor medical assistance in favor of this or that sick person is essential. We are multidimensional beings. You are a millenary being. You have a physical body that needs care, and you have a spiritual, spiritual body. So we nourish our souls with this kind of teachings, and then we go seek the medical treatment that is available to us because medicine is a blessing from God. Think about times of Jesus, 2,000 years ago, no penicillin. I'm sure they had other medicinal things they could use. Cut your finger, step on something, you could die of an infection that today we treat very easily. Medicine is a blessing. A simple vaccine can prevent you from getting ill, like COVID vaccine, but also if you get ill, you have a much greater probability of having a mild disease. Medicine is a blessing from God. So we use not only prayer, but also the resources that are available in different ways, in different equitable unequal distribution around the globe, but you use what's available to you. One day on the earth, due to the law of progress, due to the law of progress of the world, right? As we hear, we learn on the spirit, on the gospel according to spiritism, Earth will be a celestial planet one day. And then we will have everyone, like in the solar, everyone has health care. Everyone receives the medical, spiritual treatment that they need. Everybody has housing. Everybody works in certain one manner or other, right? Those who are moral superiority reign. That's where we want to be. And that's just not solar. Imagine in celestial worlds, where the body, as we know from the Spiritist magazine of Kardec's time, where in Jupiter, that's like it. The body doesn't perish from the things that we have here on the earth. and they live almost 400 years with their kind of physical composition that they have there. So we're still a little ways away, and that's what we aim for. We see this. We do the prayer, spiritual treatment, we listen to and read good literature, we nourish our bodies well, and then we seek the medicine. It says, do not use loud voices while staying in the hospital or in the room of a sick person. How many people go visit? I work in the hospital. And then while I don't work on the weekends, I know that a lot of people come visit the sick after they go to church. And you might as well think there was a party in their rooms because they're loud, they're excited to see the person who is ill, but then they forget that there's other people ill as well that may not be recuperating. So he says, don't be loud, be quiet, be calm, be controlled on what you say and you don't say. It's not the time to gossip about family and bring up the things of the world that are bothering us, right? It's always about mindfulness and compassion and empathy. The same way who wants a bunch of loud people visiting you when you're ill, when the physical body is not feeling well, right? He says, no matter, quote, no matter how serious the health of a sick person may be, do not try to predict his life expectancy, for no one has the resources for measuring someone's resilience or resistance. For each person, excuse me, for each person who discarnates, God's mercy works in the greater life through the spiritual benefactors who employ the right measure of truth and love to those who are making the transition to the other side. It's an interesting point because when we love someone, when we care for someone, we want them to be healed or cured. We can cure disease not necessarily means you healed what causes it. When we can get into a different discussion. But when we are ill, we want to be relieved of that suffering. What if the suffering and the pain is the way through to be healed? We don't know if that person is meant to become very ill and recuperate and recover, or if that person is so ill that they're gonna discarnate. That's up to God, their incarnatory plan, their decisions. So when we go there, we don't make predictions. Are you gonna die tonight, in a month? We can have an idea. Medical professionals do that all the time. An idea of how long a typical course of a disease can take. But we've seen many cases of people who die much sooner and people who discarnate much later or even get healed or cured. So it's up to us to know that it's all up to God, because now if I wish for what I want for them, now I'm co-creating, I'm co-responsible. What if they recuperate and they go commit crimes? And now I pray that they get better. So it's all about God's will. Would God want me to be in this place right now? Am I being helpful? Am I being a co-creator of the superior spirits in the good? You can come in, you can pray for them, you can bring calmness, serenity to a situation that is difficult. You can give to that person words of encouragement. You can help with the needs of physical needs of their family, spiritual needs. You can go buy food, get the medicine, help them organize, take the burden off of their shoulders a little bit, but it's all up to God. What happens to us is all up to God. And last but not least, Andrea Luiz says, quote, when visiting a sick person, try to make the visit very brief. Quote, as short as possible. And that's it. He says, stay, because that's the nature of the spirits, right? They are precise, concise, direct, and efficient. So unlike us, we like to come and talk, and you accept a coffee and a dessert, and then you stay, and then when you realize it's 3 hours later, and now we enjoyed, we were joyful together, but we didn't really serve when we could be perhaps using the same amount of time for doing something that is a little bit more productive to that situation as well. Well, it's always an honor and a blessing to be with you. This journey together through the book Green Light by the Spirit under Luiz, through the mediumship of Francisco Cândido Xavier. Remember to like, subscribe, share, because then other people can be offered this content from Kardec Radio and the Spirit Society of Richmond, so they know what to do if they had someone ill to visit, and other topics as well. Let's spread the good news of the Christ and the promised consoler as well. God willing, I'll be back with you another time next week. Until then, stay well, stay safe. Again, Happy New Year. Bye bye.